If you want to grow your short-term rental business faster and you don't want to do everything by yourself, you are going to want to listen to this episode because we are talking about a strategy to do exactly that I lovingly have termed OPA, other people's audiences.
Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome.
Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad.
Eric, what's going on?
Hello. That reminds me of the days that I got into rental arbitrage. We used to call it OPP, other people's properties. So I like OPA. Yeah, I'm excited to dive into this topic because I think it's pretty important and it's been fun to explore on our sides. Let's kick it off.
Yes, let's go. So we are going to start by sharing behind the scenes of what happened in a particular case study and the results that we've received so far from it. And I think I'll just stop setting it up and just dive in if that works for you.
Yeah, for sure.
So we got an email, I don't know, maybe it was 6 months ago now, from a TV show. And at first it was like super exciting, like, oh my gosh, they want to feature Freewyld. This is amazing. The TV show was Emmy-awarded. We looked at a couple of the episodes that they had created about other locations. It was about unique Airbnbs, short-term rentals, vacation rentals that people could go to and stay at. And the show is called Staycation. So what was your thought process when we first got that email?
I was pretty familiar with Staycation. I saw their first season. My buddy Sean Bruner, the founder of Stay. I believe he was a co-founder of the show or one of the first on the show. So I was familiar with it, but it wasn't really on my radar to reach out to and all of that. So it felt really good for the show to see what we're doing and showcase us. So yeah, it was cool. And I think their model is a little bit different. I wasn't really expecting their model and how they structure it, but it was just a fun process going through that. And it's also something I recognize that we want to go deeper into. It's something that we can leverage because LA is just 2 hours away from our property. So it's like, oh, okay, this is a whole nother marketing channel for us to tap into.
Yes. And now we have the experience to be able to show basically like a show reel is
Right.
something that you do when you're a speaker. You have examples of you speaking. We now have this example of us on a TV show. Let's speak a bit about the model because I think we were both surprised about that.
What's up, guys? Eric here. And before we dive into this episode, I want to introduce you to our podcast sponsor, Freewyld Foundry. Freewyld Foundry is a revenue management service, white glove, high touch service for the top 1% short-term rental operators. We're currently managing over $60 million in bookings, 1,700 listings worldwide, and we are growing very, very quickly. Our RPM program is a done-for-you revenue management service, and I want to invite you, if you are a short-term rental operator that's doing $1 million or more, or maybe about 15 listings or more, head over to freewildfoundry.com and apply for one of our free revenue audit reports. This is where Jasper and the team will actually take a look at your pricing strategy, audit all of your Airbnb listings, and let you know if you're leaving money on the table. So this is free. To everyone who's listening to this podcast, head over to freewildfoundry.com and apply for your free audit report.
So I think, and I don't have a ton of experience with this, but I think in typical TV shows, basically all costs are covered and you're invited to be on the show. They handle basically everything and you get the distribution benefit, you get the reach and the awareness, and it's just kind of done end to end and is therefore a very exclusive process or like exclusive invitation. Whereas Staycation seems to have created a business model where they have almost made it a business to be on the show, if that makes sense. We paid a fee to be featured on the show. And the way that we thought about it when it first came in is that in exchange for the fee, we were going to get a giant library of raw content that was shot by professional videographers. And that was really enticing to us because we knew that content and organic content in our organic presence is a giant giant priority of ours, and we needed more content to fuel that system. So when we were pitched by the show, essentially, or we had this, what was basically a sales call with them, and they brought up the fee to be on the show, we went through the thought process and had conversations behind the scenes to be like, okay, how much would this cost if we were just hiring videographers on our own? It would be relatively the same. And then we had the added benefit of being on the show. The show has a great name. It has a great focus. It's super aligned with what we're doing. And that seemed like a good deal at the time. And we were like, heck yes, let's go. Let's do it. What was going on in your mind throughout that decision-making process?
Yeah, same thing. It's like pay to play type of model. They bring in some professional videographers and just like TV shit. Like the crew there, you met them. They were freaking amazing. They were so professional and insanely talented. And it was awesome. It was a great experience. And that's what we're looking at. It's like, I think the game now for short-term rental hospitality brands, that if you have a brand or a property or properties that can go viral on social media, it's something that people want to seek out on social media before they go to your website or Airbnb or whatever. You have to invest in beautiful content around it. And like and we'll touch on this a little bit, other avenues that we're taking, but we're constantly investing into content on our own that we're leading, and then bringing in other content creators. So I just essentially looked at this as us working with a content creator, a high-level content creator that would also give us beautiful raw content that we can use, that we have full control over. And then two is it was an awesome experience to be able to say that our property was featured on an Emmy award-winning TV show. It was streamed local here in LA on a couple of channels here. It's on Roku right now, so people can watch it. The episode is called Palm Springs. It just came out last week. So that was an awesome experience. We have a show on Roku that's featuring Freewyld. Like that's such a great experience. And we have this dope content. I remember like towards the end, like we made friends with the videographer that was there, one of the videographers. Him and his girlfriend just stayed back for a little bit, and like all that extra content that we created with drones and like the sunset and like all this other stuff, we have content now that we can use for a very, very long time. So to me, it was a win-win. Luckily, we're in a position to afford it and invest into it. We've had some people reach out to us in our community. One of our RPM clients is filming a Lake Tahoe episode now, which is pretty cool with Staycation. So I highly recommend for anyone who's listening to this, if you are scaling a short-term rental brand, you have to have an awesome brand. You have to have an awesome properties, something that looks beautiful. It's worth, in my opinion, investing into the show and the experience. It's a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I also have my opinion of the show, and it kind of switched my mindset a bit of like recognizing, these are not necessarily the type of content I want to create. Like the end product, it was great, but it's not what our brand's all about. So it just inspired me to say like, hey, let's eventually create our own show, our own style content that tells our story in our way versus the typical reality TV show, which I don't know about you, but I was watching, I was just like, I was like, okay, we could do better. We could do better. But not saying that they did a bad job. I'm just saying it's a different storytelling style than we like to do in Freewyld.
Yes, it's funny. We've had this conversation both about Staycation and then like the way that the host is interacting with you, because everything is so over dramatized to be good for TV. And yes, that works for sure. But with Freewyld, we're inviting people to slow down, to be present. And that doesn't fit the mold of the typical reality TV show. We've had conversations with other producers who wanted us to like really over dramatize the wild mode experience, and just wasn't a good fit for us for the same reasons. But it's been interesting to see that. And it is the kick in the pants to be like, okay, we have all this amazing B-roll now that was shot professionally. We have this ability to tell this story in our own way. What a great jumping off point to start our own YouTube series or start creating content from that place of our brand, art, and mission and story. So I'm excited for that for sure.
Yeah. And then the social proof as well, right? To be able to put on our website as seen on Staycation. And I believe, are we adding the episode to our website, Freewyld?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, if you're listening and you're not driving and it's safe to do so, you can go to freewyld.com/staycation. There's a link to the full episode actually on that page, and you can go and watch it and you can see exactly what they created for us. So
Nice.
that's super fun. And then we'll continue to use that content on YouTube, on social. We've been mixing it into like our Instagram reels and those kinds of things. Do you want to speak a little bit to the results or your impression, like the after of being on the show?
Yeah, I think you can do a better job at like the actual results. I can tell you what I'm noticing is right away on social media, the social proof really shot us up a bit. So like a lot of people reaching out is so freaking awesome. I can't wait to watch the show. I want to stay at the property. So there's a lot of social positive that came out of this, like people reaching out and like super pumped about it and now is intrigued about Freewyld, right? Because we're featured on a TV show. So I thought that was awesome. And what have you seen number-wise, either audience or direct bookings, all of that?
So the week after it aired live, we did have a bit of a bump to website traffic. It wasn't super overwhelming by any means. I think it went up by about 30% over our baseline. We had about double the amount of direct bookings that we typically do in a week. And I think we talked about this on our last episode when we were talking about the influencer giveaways and partnerships, but we're currently trending at right at 50% direct bookings. I think the week after it aired, we were at like 76% direct bookings. So we did drive a bit more actual revenue and attention from that live viewing. I was hoping it was going to be more. The number that we were quoted when we first decided to do the show is that they have a reach of about 1 million people. And based on the numbers that we're seeing, it's not yet reached that kind of critical mass. I think that over time, the way that people's viewing habits of TV works, it makes sense that we didn't get a massive bump right in the live viewing of the show. People are streaming almost exclusively, in my experience. So people will discover the show over time, I'm hoping, on Roku and the streaming services. And then, like we already have said, we're going to continue to promote the content ourselves. So little bump in terms of direct bookings, but mostly it's kind of the benefit by association and the authority by association that we're going to lean really heavily into to maximize the impact of what we just did.
Do you remember back like 10 years ago in the internet marketing world where it was the strategy for social proof was like pay to play to get onto like entrepreneur.com and all those like publications, and everyone would have it on their website, all of that. That's kind of the way that I'm looking at this. It's like the content was the biggest win for us. And then 2 is the social proof. For anyone who's considering the show, I still think if you have a great brand and great property, it's worth the investment to go into it. And I don't think we should talk about numbers. We'll leave that up to the company. But I think the biggest value was the content and the social proof. The OPA, like the audience side of it. You know, it was great that we had that little bump, but I think reality TV show is completely different now. And it's, unless you have a huge show on Netflix, or I don't know the last time I had cable TV or looked at cable TV. So I don't know what TV shows are out there, but I'm assuming that if it's a large dedicated audience, you can see a major bump. But I think this play is better for the content and the social proof from what we see. At the end of the day, I think it was a win for us. I'm very happy that we did it. It was a fun experience. And we built some really awesome contacts with the videographers and the directors that were there. They're all in LA, and, you know, we're talking to them about doing some additional things outside of the show. And it was pretty cool.
I'm excited on all of those levels. You hit the nail on the head. We also wanted in this episode to share a few other ideas for leveraging OPA so that if you don't want to invest into a show or into a big production like we just did, there's other ways of doing it that we've seen really great results from as well. One of them is we've been pitching you for podcasts, industry podcasts, quite a bit. I'd like to also move more into more general travel podcasts as well to reach our ideal guests that might potentially be listening in that format. What has been your experience being interviewed on these different shows?
Yeah, it's awesome. For everyone who's listening, if you're building a brand, you have to talk about it as much as possible. Yeah, you have to get out to all the audiences consistently. So it's not you do one show or one podcast and then you're set forever. It's like the people that build solid brands, they're constantly on shows. I know I reference these two a lot, but I'm just always impressed with their output and their results. But Seth and Tori Bolt from Bolt Farm Treehouse, they are consistently on podcasts. They're consistently on shows. They're always getting their story out there, their brand out there, their experience out there. It's a nonstop thing. Like they hit me up the other day. They're like, we're coming to San Diego for 24 hours to film film a podcast, and then we're going to Vegas to do another podcast, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like they're constantly telling the story of their experience. I'm taking that as inspiration for the podcast that I'm doing. We have a couple of different topics that we talk about, but what I realize is that there's only so much that you can talk about when it comes to your property and design and things like that. You have to come up with a storyline that really connects with people. Our number one thing that I'm always driving forward is wild mode, wild mode, wild mode, wild mode. We talk about Idlewild, we talk about our cabins and the inspiration that's behind it, but it always falls down to our number one thing behind this brand is helping people disconnect from technology and beautiful places and beautiful locations. And it's like people really connect with that. So the more podcasts I do in the industry, the more podcasts that we do in the travel industry, I'm just noticing that people are just recognizing the brand. So regardless if they're coming and staying at the property, the brand awareness is growing. And I don't know if you want to touch on the tools that we're using, if they're still working or not, but we have a really great process to pump out content. And it doesn't have to be like the founder or the CEO of the company. It could be anybody on the team. Okay, you're doing podcasts for the company right now. You're becoming a face of the brand. If you have a company and you have somebody that wants to do that and is talented at that, just pump them up and get them on as many podcasts as possible, because over time, it's like investing. Over time, you have compounding interest with all the podcasts and you get better at it. And eventually, when people start searching you, like there's just a ton of content out in the world about your brand. So I highly, highly recommend it. Our short-term rental industry, there's not a lot of podcasts. Everyone can get on these podcasts and they're always looking for good stories, founder stories, anything that's inspirational. And if you have something like that, just freaking lean into it, have fun with it. And the great thing about podcasts, you can just be 100% authentically you, and you don't have to put on a show or script anything. Just think about your topic and what's important. It's been a fun experience to do that. I just want to do more and more of these podcasts.
I want to rewind a bit. You were talking about our wild mode story. If you don't have a story like that you've yet to find, a really useful prompt is to ask yourself, if I could change anything about the world, what would I change? What do I disagree with? What's wrong with the world? And this negative connotation just gets our brain moving a little bit quicker. Our origin story is based off of a moment where you had that realization where phones were just consuming our attention, even on vacation. It was something that really irked you and you had to come up with a solution for it. And that is how the wild mode mission, movement, and story was born. So ask yourself that same question. What is your brand the antidote to? What is your enemy? And that can create a really interesting story. Maybe you're helping people escape from boredom or escape from the corporate rat race, for example, or return to like full health and wellness. There's all sorts of different angles that you can apply to a brand to make it universally interesting. Really powerful framework that I've used in the past is brand archetypes. That can be a useful starting place, but just start with that question. What would I change about the world if I could change anything? And see what comes up. Do some brainstorming.
Love that. We have one client, I was talking to her and she's so passionate about pet-friendly homes. And she started designing all of her properties to be pet-friendly. She has a big family. They have 2 dogs. They always travel with dogs. And she's always struggling to find short-term rentals that allow dogs at their properties or pets at their properties. And I realized, I'm like, hey, that's your story. That's the problem that you're trying to solve in the world, is developing a hospitality brand that services families with pets. So go all in on it. It doesn't have to be this dramatic thing. It could just be the thing that you're passionate about, and design your brand, your properties, your messaging, everything around that. We preach this all the time. If you're trying to serve everybody, you're serving nobody. What we mean by that is, like, if you go on Airbnb and you just have a standard property, there's nothing that really attracts in a certain person, tells a certain story, it's easily overlooked. Your properties are compared to all the other properties that are in the marketplace. This all comes down to like design, the storytelling, the brand name, all that stuff. But yeah, the first part of like getting out to other people's audiences is that you have to have something unique to talk about that will separate. The problem that you're trying to solve, we have another client, Troy, who's doing podcasts and speaking on stages to talk about the problems that he's solving in his business with bringing cleaning in-house and hiring. He's got a seasonal market that he's in, and how he attacks that and then survives during the winter months. So all those little stories people want to hear, because there's a lot of people that are experiencing the same things that you're experiencing.
So the tool that Eric mentioned earlier that we've used a bit, we're not currently using it because it does take some active management, but it's an AI-driven podcast pitching tool called Pod Pitch. We've landed on some really interesting podcasts. You do have to just pay attention to it because the way that it works is it finds podcasts based on the keywords that you're interested in. It has Eric's bio in it, and then it writes a pitch for that podcast using Eric's bio and customizes it. Sometimes, as you might guess, AI gets things weird or wrong. It just sounds AI. So we like to be paying close attention to it when it's pitching, but that can be useful if you don't have a ton of time, but you want to start getting on podcasts. Just pay attention to it. And then the other benefit to being on podcasts and the next strategy that I'll share is that the more websites that are linking to your direct booking website, the more you are going to show up in search. It is a key foundational element of SEO, search engine optimization. Backlinks are key, and getting on podcasts is a really fantastic strategy to do that. You're basically borrowing the authority from that other website because they're vouching for you by linking to your site. So it's all votes to get you to show up higher in search. And that is a really strong strategy.
And let me just touch on that too. Like, we're starting to notice the SEO really starting to have a major impact on our direct bookings with Freewyld. People are finding Freewyld out there and they're just stumbling across it when they're researching Idlewild or they're researching cabins or whatever it is. And we're popping up and they're booking through our site, which is freaking awesome. Yep. It takes time, of course, to develop all this out, but it's something that will be scalable. And we don't have to get too deep into this, but I'm just curious, like, what is your thought on the future of SEO? Do you feel like that's still, with AI and ChatGPT, still really a powerful marketing channel to go after, which is SEO? Like, where do you think the future of SEO is leading?
Great question. I've seen so many evolutions in SEO about what specific tactics influence search results. And then now we're all seeing the AI summaries at the top and we're all asking questions to ChatGPT or Claude, or a lot of us are. I won't say that we all are. And sometimes it'll come back with specific websites or companies. And there's specific ways that you can influence that as well. But if you are not the full-time marketer in your business and you don't have somebody like myself in this seat, the core thing that you focus on to win at SEO is create really valuable content and leverage OPA. End of story. And then there's all sorts of like granular things that you can do that shift over time that will influence those rankings. But at the end of the day, if you're creating really great content that people want to come visit and you have this kind of network effect of being linked to by a bunch of different places, you're going to be just fine, whether we're talking about AI SEO, which has a bunch of different names right now, or we're just talking about traditional SEO. So don't overcomplicate it. Add more content to your site that's really great and helpful to your guests and be seen. That's it. However, I have been doing some research into the AI SEO stuff, which is really interesting because I have the bandwidth and the space to do it. And I'm our primary marketing human over here on the Freewyld brand. And interestingly, the things that are influencing being referenced by AI right now are mentions on a few specific websites. And this may change, is not static, but currently most citations in AI are coming from Wikipedia, Reddit, and YouTube, meaning if you're creating content or you're being referenced in any of those websites, you're more likely to show up in AI answers. There's also some interesting ways where you can format content on your site where you're answering commonly asked questions just directly. So like having really strong built out FAQs on your site can also help you be found more frequently on AI. Those like granular, fun, shiny object tactics that we can chase. And it does make sense to chase them as this industry is shifting and moving and the rules change every couple of months. But if that sounds overwhelming to you, just focus on good content and being seen.
Yeah. We'll save that for another podcast because that's a deep rabbit hole and not too much OPA when it comes to those channels. So unless you're creating content with an existing YouTube channel or audience that you can tap into, which is a whole nother game as well. So at the end of the day, it's like finding great channels to plug into. And of course, content creators that align with your brand that you can negotiate deals with and bring them in to create content around what you're working on.
Yes. So related, and another way that we can earn what's called backlinks that we're talking about. If you don't want to be on podcasts or if you want to do other things in addition to podcasts, the other thing that you can do is to pitch yourself for more traditional press or local tourism boards. So right in the beginning of Freewyld, I pitched us to visitcalifornia.com, which is the main tourism website for California. They added us to their Idlewild article as a recommended place to stay. That continues to drive traffic for us. And Visit California is a very high authority website. So that is another indicator for Google and search that we're a trusted accommodations cabin resource in Idlewild, California. So that can be really useful as well. You can pitch your local news station, your local newspaper, any tourism boards or chamber of commerces, those types of partnerships where you're featured somewhere on their site can both direct actual traffic. So people might be interested in booking, and then you get that SEO benefit as well.
That's still driving some traffic to us. Finding any type of publication that I don't want to say specializes, but pinpoints into your specific market, and then having them create content. What's that process like? Are they creating the content? Are you creating the content? Is it a combination of the two?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. So with Visit California, I just pitched us as an option for, a really unique place to stay in Idlewild, and they added us to some existing content that they had. You have done, with my help, a couple of text interviews with an LA spotlight type of newspaper, online newspaper publication. So in that case, we basically created the whole article for them, and then they just published it. So there's options like that. And then there's the traditional PR where you're trying to associate your brand or your business with something that's trending. Maybe you're pitching yourself for great bachelorette place to stay or unique bachelorette accommodations, or you're pitching yourself for the best cabin to spend Christmas with your family and friends, or those types of things.
And that's a good point. What's that saying? The riches are in the niches, right? It's going further into, instead of just saying vacation rentals or short-term rentals or Airbnb, it's design forward cabins that help you disconnect from technology. Something like that is very specific to the property that can strike a chord with the reader or the watcher.
Yep. And in terms of traditional press, if we could find, and I've done this in the past, we haven't focused on it super heavily, but if you find a new study that comes out that says that Americans pick up their phone on average 100 times every single day, and this is causing depression, anxiety, and a whole host of problems, you can pair your brand with that type of newsworthy reports or studies that have come out or trends that are happening right now. And that makes you more likely to be featured in more traditional press. So we've talked about TV shows. We've talked about podcasts, YouTube channels, which kind of overlap with podcasts often. We're recording a video right now that'll go on YouTube that is a podcast. So that's an option to kind of hit all of those meals at the same time. We've talked about press. And then in one of our most recent episodes, we talked really deeply about partnering with influencers who also have audiences that we're trying to tap into. So these are all really fantastic strategies where you aren't doing the work to build the audience. You are partnering with somebody who already has the audience of people that you want to reach, and it accelerates your results incredibly.
Just to double click into that and go a bit deeper, I get messages quite a bit from different friends that are in the marketing world that hey, you should partner with this influencer. I know this person who wants to come stay at your cabins. And even though they have a lot of following, they have a big following, we typically say no to them because this is what I'm trying to say. They're trying to find content creators that specialize in creating content locally to LA, Orange County, or San Diego. It doesn't really make sense to work with content creators that have a global presence unless it's someone massive like, I don't know, Logan Paul that wants to come out and stay at the cabin for some reason. I was just looking at his Instagram. He's got 30 million followers. Okay, if he posts something, he did something like that in Joshua Tree with the Mirror House, and that really helped the Mirror House really explode on YouTube and on TikTok. But for operators, short-term rental operators that are growing and you have a localized business, find content creators that have engaged audiences and content that are focused in your marketplace, in the surrounding areas, versus an attractive influencer model that has a ton of followers, but not really, it's more global and they're following for the person, not necessarily the experiences. So I just feel like that's going to be our process to continue to grow our social media. Can you touch on again, what were those numbers on the last giveaway that we did?
Numbers escape my brain, so I may misquote them, but I believe we ended with 220,000 views. We had over $12,000 in direct bookings immediately after that collaboration, and a ton of engagement on that joint giveaway post. So super aligned audience with a Southern California travel creator, very specific, and it just worked amazing. That is a really strong strategy. Definitely check out that recent episode that we recorded about it.
And we added, a few thousand Instagram followers?
I think it was about 5,000 that we ended up.
5,000. of like
Adding.
engaged followers, people that are interested in our brand and properties. Can you touch on like how's the marketing team going in identifying these content creators and then asking them to work with us?
It's relatively low tech. There are tools and softwares that you can use to do this, but I haven't had a lot of luck with them in the past. So the way that we approach this is think like a consumer or like our ideal guest as much as possible. And I try to think, what would my ideal guest be searching inside of Instagram or TikTok to find a cabin or a stay like ours? So like unique stays, Idlewild, things to do in Idlewild, day trips from San Diego, weekend trips from LA, those types of searches. And then I'm literally just seeing which creators show up and then doing a manual check on, is their engagement good? Are they creating content that we would want them to create for ours? Like, is there a good content match? And is their audience and their topics that they're talking about a good match for us? And if all of those checks are good, then we reach out to them just simply by DM or by email and say, hey, we'd love to work together. What does this look like for you?
Yeah. Over the weekend, I was journaling and just trying to get clear on where's the highest, best use of my time in the business. Like, where should I be putting it? And because there's always so many different things to work on. And marketing is by far the number one or one of the top best uses of my time. And of course, we have a marketing department now, which is freaking awesome. Yeah. We have awesome team and systems and all this stuff. But still, it's worth my time to be part of these shows. It's worth my time to try to help identify good content creators to work with and these different avenues. And the reason why I bring this up is we've talked to, especially like our RPM clients that want to start tapping into this that have not yet done this. They don't know where to start with all this because we're talking about a lot like TV shows and Instagram and, blog posts and all these things. The reason I bring this up is like, I feel it is worth the effort of everyone who's listening here. If you have an awesome brand and product that you can share with the world, it's worth your effort 1 to 2 hours a day to carve out to start building one of these channels, right? It could be Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever your niche, whatever you feel most comfortable with. And the way I like to think about it too is like, what are the channels that I consume the most that I'm familiar with? I'm not really on Instagram. Every time I'm on there, it's just the doom scroll. And I'm just like, man, it's so distracting. I don't want to be on here. So if you follow me on Instagram, I don't really post. I don't engage. Like, it's not my thing. But I consume a ton of YouTube. I consume a ton of podcasts. So those are the things that I want to put my effort into quite a bit. I like to write now. So I'm posting quite a bit on LinkedIn, which is more my, not really OPA, but that's my avenue. If someone is trying to get this started, is that the best place for them to start focusing on? Or what kind of team? How do you start putting all this together?
Great question, because as you touched on, it can balloon out into 17 different strategies. But what you mentioned is so key, that it is such a high leverage, high value activity in your business. And you have a unique point of view as the founder of your company, where if you're not telling your story, nobody else is, not as well as you can. So there's a ton of value for you having some input and influence over telling this story on some channel where your audience is. And what Eric said is really great advice. There are millions of people on every single social media platform. Some are quote unquote better for finding our ideal guests. So typically guests are looking on platforms like TikTok or Instagram, these more visually driven platforms, to look for places to stay. But if that's not your cup of tea, you can find your guests by being on podcasts. You can find your guests by pitching yourself to press or TV shows. You can find your guests in many different places. There's no shortage of humans in this world, but there are a shortage of founders who are willing to be visible, share their story, and put themselves out there in that way. So if you do that, you will stand out.
I agree. I just want to touch on that because we did a mastermind a few weeks ago, and one of our RPM clients reached out and was like, where do I start with all this? Like, who do I need to hire? And sometimes financially, it doesn't make sense to build out a full marketing department or be able to hire an agency for it all. But thinking about it a lot, and it's like everyone who's listening that's building a brand, it's worth the effort to spend 1 to 2 hours a day. If you don't have anyone to support you, to just start pitching yourself on podcasts, whatever platform you use for podcasts, search short-term rentals, Airbnb, and just go down and start reaching out to them. You could use the tool, all that stuff, but let's start dedicating 1 to 2 hours a day to it, and it will compound over time. That's one thing that I'm starting to recognize now, not just with Freewyld, but also what we're doing with RPM and Freewyld Foundry. It's like, People now are finding us because of the podcast. They're finding us because of Google search, because of Chat GPT, and it's because of all the content that's out there. So it's just doing the reps. It's putting the effort in every day to talk about your business, your location, why people should travel to your marketplace, why they should stay at your properties, all the things. And if there's like a big event that's happening, that's also something that's really unique for you to talk about as well. And other people in their audience, so like podcasts and content creators that have to go to properties, they're always looking for those good stories. So you have to reach out to them, and it'll be worth it over time.
I think that's a great place to end. Amazing. I love it.
OPA.
And OPA, put it on your calendar, your hour block, 2 hour block. Call it OPA. Let us know how it goes. We can't wait to hear. Reach out to Eric on LinkedIn. Connect with him. Follow him there. He's sharing a bunch of amazing content. Please do subscribe if you haven't yet to Get Paid for Your Pad, the podcast you're listening to now. Eric, anything you want to add before we close out?
No, that's it. Watch Staycation. If you have Roku, search Palm Springs or go to our website, freewyld.com/staycation, and you can watch it and let us know. Let us know how we did and, you know, if you enjoyed the show. Boom. That's it.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get